You're listening to DraftKings Network.
Hey, it's Austin James. Yes, I'm living with diabetes, but it doesn't have to define me. Thanks to the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor, I get real-time glucose readings throughout the day. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor is small and easy to wear, giving me the freedom to focus on my life as a parent and a musician. Now this is progress. You can get a free sensor at freestylelibre.us.
Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. Data on file. Abbott Diabetes Care. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Give sport with gifts from Nike. From the retro Vomero 5 sneaker designed with Zoom Air cushioning to fleece engineered with lightweight warmth and next-level comfort, we have the perfect gift for any athlete on your list. Shop now at your nearest Nike store.
Welcome to the Big Suey, presented by DraftKings.
Why are you listening to this show?
The podcast that seems very similar to the other Dan Le Batard podcast.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that.
In fact, the only difference seems to be this imaging.
I have been tempted in restaurants just walking past tables to grab somebody's fries that if they're just there. That hasn't happened to you guys?
I've done it.
And now, here's the marching man to nowhere, Fat Face, and the habitual liar.
I will tell some of our favorite listeners who come out and see us, even if we're on the edge of the Everglades, watching the Dolphins wheeze past the Jets in overtime. Aaron Rodgers, those are the best two games I've seen Aaron Rodgers play. The last two are the best two I've seen him play. He's auditioning for a new job because...
or the same job.
The only reason the Dolphins lost yesterday is because the Jets insist on being losers. That's and to his great, he's got the highest completion percentage of anyone who's ever thrown a football.
Yep.
Yeah, in season, career-wise, nobody's ever been more accurate than this person at people being thrown the football and catching it.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I want Aaron Rodgers back.
No, shut up.
The thought of Aaron going somewhere else and being great somewhere else, I'd rather him just be bad as a Jet. I'm serious. I can't watch Sam Darnold every week. I can't watch Geno Smith every week. I don't want to watch Aaron Rodgers win somewhere else. I don't. Lose here.
First 300-yard game since 2021. He has not been good, but he's auditioning for next season. And the last two games, he's looked good. Like that, the Dolphins deserve to lose that game. They could not, though, because the Jets are losers.
Do you think that Aaron Rodgers documentary is going to help him at all? Because I feel like it's only going to hurt him, right?
Hurt him how? He wants to be seen as unusual and eccentric, and he's got some of that fun CTE.
In terms of getting a contract next year, I feel like we're all going to watch and be like, yeah, it's probably best not to go down that rabbit hole.
I don't think he wants to be seen as any of those three things.
You think blacklisted for having kooky theories is what's going to keep him out of the league?
Not blacklisted, but I mean, his play hasn't been great. And at a certain point, you're like, is it worth this headache?
But then he can claim that he was blacklisted because he had two good games. He just threw for 300 yards. He shredded the Dolphin defense. Those were dimes. Like everything he was throwing on third and fourth down, I'm like, oh, that's what Garrett Wilson is supposed to look like. Oh, look, Devontae Adams, that's what a million reps looks like. Like, that's not possible to stop. He's going to drop back third and four, and you're not going to be able to stop it. The Jets didn't have to punt. The Dolphins win that game in overtime, but didn't deserve to. Your boy Sanders is the most accurate kicker in the league.
Yeah, we workshopped this idea, Dan, and I put the kibosh on it because it's not fully fleshed out, but I would like to run it by you because I feel like you're going to like this idea, just not in its present form, so we didn't go to air with it, right? So I was told by Taylor, who's a singer-songwriter of our generation, some are saying, and he was saying, tomorrow you need to literally eat humble pie when it comes to Jason Sanders. So what I was going to do is I was going to go to Burger King, go to the drive-thru, get a piece of Hershey Sundae pie, which is absolutely delish, and it's like $1.85, which is a great deal. So I was going to get a slice, but then I figured eating a slice of pie would not suffice. But also eating an entire pie, I mean, my sugar would be crazy right now. Like, I'm not diagnosed pre-diabetic, but I know that my diet is not good, and I know I'm headed in that direction. So I don't want to be eating an entire pie. I feel like that's going to end poorly for me.
So what are we going to do?
Well, that's the thing is we need to figure out what type of pie is eaten here, because I feel like you like the idea of a segment called Eating Humble Pie when someone is proven wrong. However, the payoff is just you're watching someone eat a pie. So what is the actual payoff there besides just making someone
I would imagine eating
pie?
a whole pie would hurt. I imagine it would be unpleasant.
Yeah, but it's a pie. Eating pie is fun.
It's also that's the thing is
an
that
entire pie. Jessica makes good things. An entire pie, like you went to the hospital for an onion. You might go to the hospital from eating an entire
First
pie.
I heard of that. Yeah, well, that's the thing is like if I go next door and I'm just eating a slice of pie and I'm like, Dan, I'm doing this new segment.
Make us a humble pie. Yes,
eating humble pie, and I'm just eating a slice of pie. You'd be like, this is a giant waste of everyone's time. You're just enjoying a pie you like, and you'd be right.
I am curious as to how Jess would design and curate a humble pie. As you know, baking is her core culinary discipline.
Well, let's ask her, because thank you to everybody who came out yesterday. We do not take that for granted that you come from all over the United States to hang out with us and watch a football game. I have a cringe story for you here. Billy was a magician on stage. He had such a rhythm with the crowd that they were guessing his numbers on the first guess when he was asking them to pick a number between 1 and 100. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know what the odds are?
It was amazing.
I felt like I was asking O's, the mentalist, to pick a number, and
you
he
were
knew
amazing.
the number.
You had the crowd in your hand. Jessica was out there with us, and I've been wanting to get her thoughts because college football, Stugotz, we haven't even gotten to this, okay? SMU gets in. Clemson is the first to steal a bid. I'm sure all of you are thrilled for Dabo Swinney. Clemson steals its way in. Everyone knows that team's not good enough.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it.
The committee ranked them 16th.
Everyone knows that team's not good enough. We've seen that team. It's not just, look, you don't give me committee, don't need numbers, don't need a scoreboard. Nope, not good enough. Stole a bid. I'd rather see Alabama or Miami or BYU. But Dan Lanning is claiming SEC bias, which is hard to do today.
Or South Carolina, who beat Clemson 2 weeks ago.
That's correct.
Yes.
That is correct, because everybody in the sport has lost recently. But Jessica, your overall thoughts, and welcome, your overall thoughts on everything that just happened, because I expect a ton of arguing, but once Clemson throws this chaos into it, you got to shrug your shoulders and say, okay, fine, SMU's the loser in there, and then you keep Alabama out. You look like you did it clean.
Yeah, I mean, I think my initial reaction is, man, this Sunday television show is very silly. I sat there and I waited and I waited and I was like, just tell me who the teams are. Just show me the teams. And I had to keep waiting. And I think I watched like a full hour of the show before they even got to the full 1 through 25 ranking. And I was like, I have to go to Dolphin Mall. I don't have time for this. But yeah, I mean, Clemson, you could say they stole a bid. They don't get a bye. They're the only conference champion in the playoff that's not going to get a bye week, but they won the game that was in front of them that they had to win to make the playoff. And there's a lot of teams that were in that position this season, Miami, that they didn't do that. So I guess, have fun playing in Austin against Texas. Texas, by the way, they didn't look very good in the SEC championship game, so that game actually might be interesting.
Because that conference isn't actually that good. Georgia's not actually that good. They beat Texas by 3 points, and now Georgia gets to be good when none of those teams are actually that good.
It is an interesting look when Georgia Tech takes the SEC champion to 8 overtimes. I was very curious to see, had Georgia lost that game, Jess, when we established the Jordan Travis precedent, Carson Beck status. if Georgia loses that game by a wide margin, do you think the CFP applies the Jordan Travis logic and keeps Georgia out? Or is that just exclusive to screwing the ACC?
Not at all, because the situation last year was that Travis got hurt and then we watched Florida State's backup play a couple games and the committee was like, it's not the same team. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think it's
they won an ACC championship there, right?
Yeah, right. But I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying they wouldn't have done that because, I mean, it's Monday morning. We still don't know what Beck's injury is. I assume it's pretty bad. It looked really bad, but I don't know what his test results were. I don't know if Gunnar Stockton is going to start in the Sugar Bowl against either the winner of Indiana Notre Dame. So I think it's sort of a different situation. Not saying that it was right last year, just that it would have been they wouldn't have done that this year.
It's just awfully convenient that it's always a different situation for one conference. You try to apply the same logic and the goalposts keep moving for whatever reason when it comes to the SEC.
But SMU's in, right? Like Alabama didn't get in over SMU.
Well, SMU's in. SMU's in, Jess. Do you think SMU's in because they fought back in that game? Because it felt felt like all of Saturday, the ESPN media machine and all the CFP partners were basically laying the foundation to screw SMU out of this. SMU battles, loses on the last second 56-yard field goal, and that's the way that the committee...
That's ridiculous, though. Having a good fourth quarter is a ridiculous reason to put SMU into the playoffs.
Stugotz, all these reasons are ridiculous.
Yes.
We're parsing. These teams don't play each other enough. Like Texas, you hold up Texas's resume right now, and the fact that they actually made it to the conference championship is really the only thing that they have going for it. Because if you give Miami that resume, they're OLI. So it's all a little bit ridiculous.
I think one of the things, Jessica, please walk me through what you saw from yesterday and tell me where it is that me and Mike have this wrong. Because Mike is getting on X. Man, all that crying against the SEC by Mike Ruiz sure does look a little sad right about now. I think... And
I did not tweet that about myself, just so you know.
Who tweeted that?
I don't know.
Very self-aware.
Mike Ryan has been telling us about the SEC for a while, and I don't know how many more results you need, okay? Lane Kiffin...
I actually, Dan, I felt like Saturday went pretty well. Everybody watching that game was like, this is pretty disappointing. This is an SEC championship game. I mean, we're over here pivoting and selling the defense, and I understand every game's in a vacuum, but I saw Georgia Tech put up like 500, like close to 600 yards of offense against that vaunted SEC
Georgia
defense.
Tech is obviously very well coached, and Georgia Tech, we can all agree. You take Georgia there, you take Miami there, you're probably a pretty good football team. Like
what is the question? Let's go back.
I will.
Yes. We ended up on a tweet. Tell me the question.
I will. Forgive me for the ramble here.
It's a fair request.
No, it is a fair request. But what I'm watching is, I think that everyone came into this with what their preconceived notions were about what SMU is, what BYU is, what Georgia Tech is, what Georgia is, what Syracuse is. And nobody got their minds changed when everyone started playing. SEC starts playing each other, and we're like, well, they all must be good. And we're like, no, they're all kind of the same. Vanderbilt's in there, Missouri's in there, they all look the same. And so Miami and others are like, of course it's got to be Alabama with 3 losses. They played in the SEC.
What is the question? I mean,
that's a question. Miami doesn't deserve to get in anymore because of how things broke. But I'm just curious what the question was.
Do you want to be told you're the first 2 out?
No,
I'd rather just not know.
Question?
Honestly,
it's all right. But I think to the original question that I had twice before, do you think the committee would have screwed SMU out if they didn't battle back in that fourth quarter?
The question.
I don't know. I think that the question with SMU was going to also depend on what they did with Penn State and Texas. So I think like going into Sunday, if they were going to treat the conference championship games differently, they had to at least do it uniformly. So like Penn State and Texas didn't really get punished for losing those games, even though those were both their second losses of the season. So you can't punish SMU for doing it either, even if there's a bigger margin. But I mean, they didn't get blown out, so I can't say that, Mike. Like it was a close game. It came down to a ridiculous kick by Clemson's kicker that and like a return that SMU should have stopped. I mean, it was a ridiculous end of the ACC championship game. Also, the only exciting Big Ten championship game of like the last decade, I want to say. So I can't tell you what would have happened because it didn't happen. SMU started out the game with a bunch of really costly turnovers, and it looked like they were letting it get away from them, and they battled back. And I think that, an 11-win team that makes it to the conference championship game, even if they do lose by a wider margin, shouldn't be treated differently than Penn State, who also was down by 14 or 18 points at one point in the Big Ten championship game, and Texas, who couldn't beat Georgia's backup quarterback after Carson Beck went out with that really nasty injury, and then came back in, by the way, in overtime when everyone was like, oh, he's going to hand the ball off. And then he handed the ball off and they were like, oh, the game's over. We didn't realize they were going to do that.
Jess, the transfer portal has opened officially today. There's all sorts of unofficial ugliness going on behind the scenes with players that are in the portal, players that are not in the portal. We have so many rounds of football to go with this portal thing hovering over it. How do coaches navigate this? Because players and their reps are reaching out regardless.
Oh, the whole thing's crazy. I mean, that National Signing Day was like 4 days after like the season ended last week. And then you have the portal opening and there's already tons of players, like Tulane's quarterback, who's really good, just went in. There's also the coaching carousel is still ticking, Mike. I have no idea. I think that is one of the things where you see teams with bigger staffs that have the resources to like manage all those things at once while their team's in the postseason. They're going to be all right, but I don't know. This is why they get paid like $10 million to be the head coach. That's what the money's for. Have fun.
I
Good
can't
luck.
believe that it's taken us this long to get into the show, and I don't know what the reporting is, what's accurate here, because I saw a report that Steve Belichick has been promised the job once Bill Belichick hands that over, and that doesn't seem sound or reasonable to me, but I haven't seen a second source on that, so I'd like somebody to tell me.
Well, ask Taylor.
What's going on?
Mike,
where is
get
Taylor?
Yes.
Where is
Taylor, what's the latest on this Bill Belichick stuff? Because the Steve Belichick thing is out there.
I've been telling people that Belichick is happening. I called Stu last week.
He did.
The expectation from people in Chapel Hill is that Belichick is going to be Carolina's next coach.
Mm-hmm.
There was pressure to get it done Sunday, and everybody that I kept talking to was saying it's very close, it's going to happen. We're into Monday now, and
this is former North Carolina walk-on Taylor.
He's plugged in, Dan.
He's a Carolina insider, Dan.
He's our Carolina insider.
I broke Freddie Kitchens coaching the bowl game.
Well,
he did.
Taylor alleges to have all the information, and then we read about it somewhere else. So what are you breaking? What do you know exclusively as a former walk-on for the North Carolina football team?
Well, I also broke that Carolina was playing in the Fenway Bowl against UConn.
Wow.
If you want to give me,
Don't forget
You
that.
tell him.
if you want to give me
All
a
right,
flower.
you're kind of an insider in that you used to be a walk-on on the team, and occasionally you get morsels of information that you break late.
He also told us that Mac Brown was out, but told us we couldn't say anything.
He did. Yeah.
Well,
isn't helpful.
where are we on this? This seems to be a pretty seismic story. Belichick's got to be insulted by what just happened with the NFL. Is it indeed tied to his son? Is it indeed tied to because that'd be crazy if the way you get Belichick to run your program in North Carolina, because Belichick still got value, no? Like, we would agree that you bring Belichick to your program, and now you're bringing a brand like Deion Sanders. Hey, we're going to play with the big boys on NIL. We've got a kingmaker. Like, when you're buying one of these coaches, he just did sort of a reverse Brian Kelly, didn't he? Like, where, I'm not valuable up here? Okay, I'll show you, and I'll bring my son along.
I don't think there's any talk of a succession plan with Steve Belichick or the head coach in waiting. But there's obviously something that's kind of holding up this deal because from everybody I've talked to, this was supposed to be kind of finalized.
Yeah,
yes.
the NFL.
It's probably the Jaguars, yes.
You're doing great, Taylor.
Okay. All right, get out of here, Taylor. Jessica, do you have any thoughts on this? Mike was yelling that this was a good job, that this is a good job to have, and I did not have Bill Belichick saying, okay, forget it, never mind. Greatest coach in NFL history, I'm going to go do it in college.
I love Taylor's headshot. It is a good job. North Carolina football is a good job. Obviously, North Carolina's primary resources go into basketball, but you're in the ACC. You can recruit down there. You can win a bunch of games and make the playoff now, even if you lose a couple of those games. It's a great time to be a college football coach of a team with like a 9 or 10 win game season ceiling, I should say. So I don't know. Good for Bill. Good luck, my guy. It's gonna be weird.
Jessica, I'm still curious. What goes into a humble pie?
Yeah.
Make it for us, please.
I would probably just get whipped cream and write the word humble on it, honestly. I don't think it would be like a ingredient that's humbling. I think it would just be like a decoration.
First of all, that sounds incredibly lazy. Second of all,
shortcut.
Yeah, I think he was saying like turds, like he's trying to make a tie. Like
Is it
not
cursive?
that. Yeah,
He
like,
wanted boring
do you eat crow
ingredients.
in a humble
Right.
pie?
yeah, I mean that if you were to actually make a humble pie to make it edible but also a little bit foul, what are
Yes.
the ingredients? That's what that's.
foul.
And some crumble.
you.
Like make it a crumble pie, but you just
Crumble pie.
It's got to be a punishment to eat it, right?
Why?
Because you're being
Why do you
humbled.
like punishing people
You're
so
being
much?
humbled.
But you're eating humble pie.
No, but the pie can just say humble on it,
Be
and that's
delish,
a pie, then
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
humble.
no, but it should not be an enjoyable experience, right? You got humble pie. You got to eat like, oh my God, I got to eat all. Well, no.
Who's eating the pie? Is it Dan? Because it's going to be full of stuff he's allergic to. So
Guys,
I think that part will be humbling.
So
when
much
he's-
gluten.
You have to dread
Expelling
eating
it.
the humble pie. Of
Nah.
course, it's a punishment.
Sue does bring up a good point.
Thank you.
I'm Dan. I'm doing some research on this North Carolina situation because I'm not going to sleep until this thing is resolved and we have answers here.
Yeah.
And there is talk about Steve Belichick getting a head coaching job as a result. Now, Stugotz told me and the audience yesterday exclusively on the show that Bill Belichick going to North Carolina was deeply tied to his ability to participate in the lacrosse program
Yes.
as well because he loves lacrosse.
And what
Now-
I told you is Dave Petramala, one of the great defenders in lacrosse history, is part of the he is one of Belichick's best friends, and he is recruiting Bill Belichick to the University of North
You
Carolina.
broke this on stage,
Dave
God Bless
Petramala.
Football, as
Yep.
part of God
Well,
Bless Football's
Petro.
American tour. You
Yes.
punctuated yesterday by live on the air during
yes.
football, breaking the news that Belichick was tied to lacrosse in North Carolina.
One of the great long poles in lacrosse history. I mean, what?
Good for him.
Yeah.
Defenders. They have longer poles.
What's up, everybody? Tony here. Do you love sports betting as much as I do? Wish you can get that extra edge? Well, I've got great news for you. Masterclass, which I love, by the way, just dropped Bet Smart Top Sports Betting Strategies, a game-changing course taught by GOATs, taught by the pros, such as Nick Kostos, Captain Jack Andrews, Joe Fotenbaugh. Learn directly from the pros as they share insider secrets on managing your bankroll, spotting hidden gems, and avoiding those rookie mistakes that could cost you big. I'm always looking for useful tips and tricks to improve my bankroll and just to be a better bettor in general. That's why I took the Bet Smart Top Sports Betting Strategies class. I consider myself a pretty confident bettor when I hear Rob Pizzola, when I hear Captain Jack break down the pros and the cons of flat staking, of protecting your bankroll against bad bets, a lot of different things that we don't think about as regular bettors. I realized I wasn't betting to my full potential, and that's why I love taking this class with Masterclass. Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50%. Head over to masterclass.com/DLB for the current offer. That's up to 50% off. Masterclass.com/DLB. Masterclass.com/DLB. And remember, all sports betting involves risk, and you're responsible for complying with all sports betting laws in your jurisdiction.
Stugotz here. Right now, my friends over at Simply Safe are extending their massive Black Friday deal for our Batard Show listeners. Simply Safe is the home security I trust to keep my home and family safe. I've been telling you that for years. This is your last chance to protect your home at Simply Safe's lowest prices of the year. Simply Safe is a new way to protect your home that stops intruders before they break into your home. Old school systems only take action once someone is already inside your home. That's too late. Simply Safe's Active Guard outdoor protection changes the game by preventing crime before it even happens. Simply Safe is extending its massive Black Friday deal for our listeners. This week only, you can take 50% off any new system with a select professional monitoring plan. This is your last chance to claim their best offer of the year. Head to simplysafe.com/DLB to claim your discount and make sure your home is safe this season. Don't wait. This offer won't last long. Keep your home, your family, and your peace of mind protected with Simply Safe. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
This episode is brought to you by Disney Plus. Game on, because ESPN Plus content is available on Disney Plus. You can watch your favorites from Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus together like never before. With ESPN Plus, unwrap a full day of NBA action on Christmas Day. Tip off the festivities with the Spurs and Knicks, followed by the Mavs and Timberwolves. Then a clash between the Lakers and Warriors, followed by the 76ers and Celtics. And finally, the Nuggets face off against the Suns, all streaming December 25th. Then with Hulu, watch the terrifying sci-fi thriller Alien Romulus, where a group of young space colonizers come face to face with the ultimate horror. And on Disney Plus, follow the adventures of 4 kids across the galaxy as they meet unlikely allies and enemies in Star Wars Skeleton Crew, starring Jude Law. All of these and more now streaming and available with a bundle subscription. Visit disneyplus.com for details. Terms apply.
Don Le Batard.
Mr. Shirt, if I may say for a second. Miami, they were simulating the snap count the entire game, and they were clapping at the line of scrimmage. And the only thing I want to see clapping are them cheeks on Mrs. Met in my face, Mike Shirt. All right, so that's one thing.
Stugotz.
They're a bunch of cheaters, Dan. And you know who should be cheating? Mrs. Met on Mr. Met. And he can watch if he wants.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Taylor said something must be up, something's happening, because the news is supposed to come out on Sunday. It hasn't come out yet. It's Monday. So I've done some digging, and I think that there may be more to this story that's not being reported. Just a hunch. I don't know this for a fact. Now, if we look at Bill's other offspring, Amanda Belichick. Amanda Belichick is the coach at Holy Cross for women's lacrosse. So I said, you know what? Maybe he's trying to get a twofer here, bring all his children in and get them head coaching jobs. Now, here's the hang-up.
You're looking at the wrong Nepo baby media.
Yeah, here's the hang-up here. North Carolina women's lacrosse.
It's pretty good.
Head coach Jenny Levy, I'm sorry, I'm not sure, Coach.
Hasn't won enough, though, I'll tell you that much.
But so much more qualified than Steve.
Well,
Steve's gotten all the fame in the family, so much more Steve has just been hanging around sidelines, creeping around sidelines for 25 years.
Amanda's actually a head coach
Amanda's
somewhere.
out there actually doing the work. Steve is daddy's boy.
Well, here's the thing. Coach L is entering her 30th season as North Carolina's head coach and is a Hall of Famer. So it's going to be hard to force out Coach L here to bring in Amanda, I would think. But I don't know. This could be the hang-up. Maybe look into this, Taylor.
Wait, what about the men's team?
Oh.
Men's team is fine.
Men's lacrosse.
No, I think angling for Amanda Belichick to take over for Jenny Levy once she retires or is forced out. I mean, the football program is more important than the basketball program. If you want, and then the lacrosse program. If you want to force Jenny Levy out, the way to do it would be with Bill Belichick. He could get that done. It means more.
But if you're Bill Belichick,
yes,
you want to make a splash. I want my daughter to coach the men's team. That's right. You want me to
like
coach?
it.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm not only putting my kids in positions of power, I'm putting them in historic positions. Like, oh, she broke the gender barrier.
Yes.
Jess, I have a question for you as it regards to these matchups because the takes are you didn't cover it enough. The takes are flying. Joel Klatt's out there saying this path is easy. I leave it to you. I'm interested in your take. One of the things that bothers me about this is everyone goes to these takes thinking that they actually know what's going to happen, which kind of pisses me off in a year that's been a little bit more unpredictable. What do you think the best game of the first round is going to be, and do you think there is such a thing as an easy path in this thing?
Ooh, I don't know if there's any easy path. I think the 8-9 playing Oregon is definitely really difficult, and I actually think that half of the bracket is pretty hard. There's a lot of speed on that side of the bracket. Like there's a lot of really good players and a lot of really fast wide receivers over there. So I think that, if you're Oregon, you're like, oh, I'm getting rewarded for going undefeated by having to play against Tennessee or Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. You'd probably rather play, Penn State versus SMU or Texas versus Clemson or Notre Dame versus Indiana. So I could see that argument for sure. But I really don't think that there's any easy path. I think that the thing that's great about the 12-team playoff this year is that all the teams in the playoff are really good and are, I think, all capable of winning at least a game. But they're all teams with tremendous flaws. Like Georgia has, especially if Beck is out.
I thought everyone agreed that number 5 was the slot that you wanted to be in if you were going to be with a bye. That you wanted to be where Notre Dame.
Well,
was
I think
trending.
the assumption was that the group of 5 team would be the 12 seed when we all saw the playoff format and the Pac-12 ceased to exist any longer. It'd be like, oh, okay, well, you'll probably get the G5 winner in the 12 spot. So the 5 seed will play Boise State or Tulane or Army or whoever, and that's the easiest path forward. But obviously that's not the case. Boise gets a bye, and Penn State, the winner of Penn State SMU, will have to play Boise. And I think Boise's defense is not very good. They're probably I want to say they're 38th in F+ right now or something like that. So yeah, I could see wanting to play Boise for that reason. But the other side of that is that they have the potential Heisman Trophy winning running back on their offense. So I don't think you want to play Ashton Genty. But yeah, I think Penn State's in probably the best spot. But at the same time, we know James Franklin, he doesn't win these games. He doesn't win the top 10 matchups very often or
ever,
at all. So
ever.
It's just I don't know. I think it's going to be really fun.
I think the entire country would be okay with Penn State. No, you're not going to win anything. Get out of here. You're not allowed in. It doesn't make sense. You've got a record to get in, but no, you couldn't score on the goal line at Ohio State. Get out of here.
If that happens, though, you're getting SMU or Boise State advancing.
That's fine. Just get out of here.
Guys, Taylor's tugging on my leg. He has an update.
All right.
Last update for today. The only candidate being discussed right now at Carolina is Bill Belichick.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.
What happened? John Summerall, I saw he tweeted this morning the Wolf of Wall Street meme. So that must be over for sure. I thought Matt Campbell might be an option there, but man, I wouldn't want to play Arizona State either if I'm Texas.
They look pretty good. They're
fast.
They put up big point totals. Billy, get in here because I want to get you in here. Samson wants to get in here. He's upset because he hasn't had any ability to get into the show because we're talking college football, and he's bothered that we're not still talking about Soto.
I'm following up on this big men's lacrosse lead that we got earlier in this show, and I looked up Joe Bresci, who's the men's head coach. Yeah. So I'll just read you one quick line. He's entering his 17th season, and this is how his bio on the website starts. Joe Bresci's coaching philosophy is summed up in 3 words: family, academics, lacrosse.
I thought it was F.U. Soto.
That's what Bresh is all about.
Can you guys get me the sound of Dan Lanning here? I want to get Jessica's response to this. Dan Lanning and people, and I want to get Mike Ryan's response to everyone braying with laughter about his SEC tears.
apologies to ESPN, but those guys are SEC honks. And so all they do is they talk about how great the SEC is. And, to your face, they're going to tell you how great you are. But behind your back, they're going to tell you how much they love those SEC teams. You know that. You were in the SEC.
They pay the bills, right? I mean, doesn't the SEC pay their bills? I mean, who's their contract with? Is it ESPN's contract?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so that's how it works. Like, let's not pretend like it doesn't work different than that. But, there's a secret to all that, John. Just win. Just win. They can't deny you if you just win. You can't complain if you just win. So, if you lose 3 games, shame on you, right? If you lose 2, shame on you, right? Win.
That's right. Win, shame on you.
My guy.
That's right. That's right.
My favorite thing that happened yesterday was Greg Byrne getting community notes on Twitter for his annoying. There was so many SEC fans that were like, why would any SEC team schedule a tough non-conference game? And it's like, you guys know they added Oklahoma to the SEC, right? That was a conference loss for Alabama. What are you talking about? And also the SEC as a conference, you guys know you didn't have to add Oklahoma and Texas. No one made you do it. So I guess you're kind of like net neutral because one of the new teams you added got in the playoff and one of them prevented your darling from not getting in the playoff. So we came out neutral in that. You got 3 teams in. Good job. Everyone should be happy. Good, congratulations. One of them might win the national championship. And then what are you complaining about?
Yeah, we have the tweet from Greg Byrne here where he says that they have to reevaluate how they schedule out of conference when all their losses actually came from in conference. Like you scheduled USF, Western Kentucky, and Mercer.
Mercer!
Right? They had a Wisconsin in there too, but it's just
maybe you shouldn't have hurt Tyler Van Dyke. Maybe you shouldn't have injured Tyler Van Dyke. Just kidding. I know they didn't do that on purpose, but that didn't help because then Wisconsin ended up sucking the rest of the year offensively.
Schedules out of conference schedules are a difficult thing because they're scheduled several years in advance, right? Like Miami actually scheduled in the last 10 years. They've scheduled Bama. They've scheduled LSU. They've gone to College Station. They played Texas A&M at home. They've gone to the Swamp. Does it work out? Sometimes you're playing the greatest team of all time. Sometimes you're playing a Texas A&M in a down year, but it buys them nothing, that ambition, because at the end of the day, the CFP is going to go from, you play who's in front of you, we're not going to hold that against you, to actually ranking these teams and boosting their own arguments. Like Miami doesn't have a ranked win. We're being told that by the committee that's doing the ranking that has done something pretty unprecedented, taking a Power 4 team in Duke that has 9 wins and not ranking them. Flatly doesn't happen. It's happened twice in 15 years.
My favorite was Jim Nagy was tweeting. He does all the Senior Bowl stuff. He was tweeting about how if you just take all the NFL talent from the top teams in college football, all the SEC teams are clearly ahead and blah blah blah. And I tweeted something in response where I was like, look, if you guys want to crown a champion of the SEC, you did that on Saturday. You already have that. The college football playoff is supposed to be the entire rest of the field, everyone plays against each other. And then someone responded to me on Twitter and said we should have an SEC tournament and a college football tournament and the winners play each other for the championship. And I was like, my guy, that's the regular season. That's the whole point. That's what we're doing here. That's why they play the conference games and then they have the champion and then the Big Ten has the conference games and then the champion and the ACC and then there's the at-large bids. We already do that. That was the whole point. I don't know what you're talking about.
Guys, I've gotten deeper onto the Belichick story.
Tell me more.
It's all about leverage, right? He's got all the leverage. We just heard from Taylor. He's the only candidate being discussed, right? So that means he's got all the leverage. Not only get Steve Belichick the job after he's done, not only get Amanda Belichick, the men's team.
Yeah.
But here's another one. Basketball, men's basketball in North Carolina, been struggling recently, right?
Yeah.
Really struggling. Belichick doesn't have any other kids, though, but I'll tell you what he does have in his close circle. He has a Jordan Hudson, his girlfriend.
Oh.
Make her look. Jordan last time worked really well for the North Carolina basketball
Homecoming,
team. There you go.
It's part of the brand.
Last time they had a Jordan.
Jordan brand.
We're bringing back Jordan. I wanted to ask you guys something
Jordan
about
Hudson.
that, believe it or not. Do you know how much the Nike swoosh was originally sold for? The original Nike swoosh.
Like $12. I love the story.
$35.
Yeah.
What?
$35. I wonder how haunting that is for that person that got ripped off there to see it everywhere.
Dan, I got a great corollary to this. My cousin was telling me he remembers when one of our friends told him years ago, hey, there's this thing called Bitcoin. You should invest in it. And I said, how much was it going for back then? And he said 15 cents. And so I just said, $100. If you put on $150 on Bitcoin back then, you'd be worth $100 million. And he said, that's bad, but do you know about the story about the guy from Florida who bought 2 Papa John's pizzas with Bitcoin that is now valued at $700 million? That guy. You want to talk about someone hitting their head against the wall and be like, I can't believe how stupid I am. That's got to be the guy who feels worse, right?
You guys are saying you can't believe how bad the guy that designed the Nike swoosh felt, right?
The woman.
Fine. There's a woman, Caroline Davidson.
The woman.
Yeah, Caroline.
Thank you,
Girls,
Billy.
thank you.
I love you being the vigilant police on that one. Jessica, last thing before we let you go. I have this essentially right. If you didn't watch any college football this year and you went into the season with whatever you thought the ACC was and whatever the SEC was and didn't watch any of the games, the results of what just happened is the SEC got credit for things that didn't happen on the field and the ACC, for example, does not. Yes or no?
Can you extrapolate?
That the ACC's reputation and the SEC's reputation is what actually did. We didn't have to play the season. We didn't have to watch any of the games.
I mean, then Florida State would be in the playoff because we were all like, oh, they're going to be good this year, right? Like, I don't know. I don't agree with you. No one thought SMU was going to make the playoff. No, they were in week 0. They played Nevada, and I was like, ooh, this is going to be a rough season for SMU.
Okay,
so
but the fact that SMU can play with Clemson and the fact that we know that Clemson's not that good this year suggests that Miami is what was the top of that conference.
Perhaps. Why can't the SEC just be the better conference?
I understand the argument that Miami could have been. I think ultimately,
yeah, they could have been. They really only had to beat Syracuse, and they're in the playoffs. So yeah, like they came down to 4 points, really.
Well, it's just you have these 3 teams that are in the mix, and for like 3/4 of the season, Pitt was also in that mix, and it was frustrating as a Miami fan in that you don't even have common opponents really amongst these conference teams. I don't have the ability to show you. For example, like SMU beat up on like 6 of the bottom teams in the ACC. That obviously plays a factor in their appearance in Charlotte. Now, Miami just doesn't do what it has to do to get in there, but it's a little frustrating that we put together all these massive conferences and already in year 1, we see how someone can game the system, how someone can be fortunate. If Texas doesn't make it to the SEC championship game, you can hold that resume up under a microscope. Indiana is playing Notre Dame, and I'm curious your thoughts on that game because it could be an interesting one because they played 3 teams with winning records all season long in one of these mega conferences in which you couldn't even imagine that. So I think we have a huge issue with being able to decide who truly is the best team in these conferences if we're going to have situations where you could have 4 teams in the mix who don't even play one another.
Yeah, the conferences are giant. The scheduling's uneven. There's never been a really easy way to choose a national champion in the sport, and there never will be. We will argue about it till the end of time. That's why, enjoy the regular season while you have it. Enjoy the bowl games. They're fun. Beat your rival. Like, there's more to the sport than just picking the playoff games and the national champion at the end of it. Like, it's 134 teams and a billion games, and they're awesome. And we'll just keep arguing about it until we die. Eat at Arby's.
That's good. Yes, let's do that. Jess, thank you for being.
Ward Manuel, he wins.
Yes.
What do you guys think? There's a clip out there of Cam Ward saying he's going to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
No.
Yeah.
He should.
No, he should not.
No, he should
not. It's a premier ACC destination
for
bowl games.
No, he should not. Yeah. He should not play in that game. He should opt out of that game.
Damian Martinez has already announced that he's going to be playing in it.
No, they should all opt out.
Here.
You should not play against Iowa State for no reason.
And you shouldn't get to eat Pop-Tarts for the rest of your life.
Thank you, Jess. We appreciate the time. David Sampson continues to fume. I couldn't ask the question succinctly, but the way that I would just ask you, Stugotz, do you know that Georgia is that much better than Georgia Tech?
Yes, I think Georgia's a lot better than Georgia Tech.
A lot better. They went to overtime, dude. They were up 14 with 5 minutes left, and Georgia got all the calls. Like, this is infuriating. We saw it.
Right. So no one knows anything about college football other than you. He asked me a question.
We
I
saw
gave him an
them
answer.
play.
Right.
We saw them play, dude. You don't know. Yesterday, you were asking on the stage, like, Boise State hasn't played anybody. I'd like to see them play Georgia and Alabama.
No.
They were within a touchdown of Oregon at Eugene.
I was making a larger point that this is the playoff I want to see. I don't care about the playoff. I don't care what you want to see. I care about what I want to see.
How do you watch
and what
the
I
Georgia
want to
game?
see is Alabama.
How do you... This is infuriating.
Well,
but,
you can't argue what he wants to see. It's what he wants to see.
But I can't argue, like, Georgia's a lot better than Georgia Tech when we saw them play against one another, and we know that Georgia escaped against them. How do you formulate that take? They played less than 2 weeks ago.
The reason I say it is because we come in with whatever our opinion already was, and the game doesn't end up mattering even as you watch it.
They have to ban preseason rankings because all of that couches all of this.
That I
should be able to rank any teams until a month into the season because all of it exists as confirmation bias.
Yes.
How do I know who choked if you don't have preseason rankings?
Billy, this is what's great.
Banning it.
We get right back to Amin's original point, which is it's so much more fun to watch sports the way that he does. He is a Georgia Tech fan. All he's checked in on is, yeah, we're better than we thought you were, or some form of yelling drunk of Georgia Tech was actually good this year. Nobody respects Georgia Tech, even though when FSU lost them, we were all like, oh, okay. That was the first note of the season was Georgia Tech drags FSU.
Their top two quarterbacks were out for like 3 games. Okay, like that.
Georgia Tech is
severely
so well
impacted
coached.
their record. They went undefeated at home.
Do you know how much better Miami is than Georgia Tech? I do. Georgia Tech beat you with one quarterback who was so hurt that you couldn't keep him in the game, and another one that told you that every time they were throwing because he came into the game. They beat you with that because
Pro Football Focus loves that dude's passing numbers.
They're pretty good, Georgia Tech, obviously, but Stugotz will never say so.
Well, 5 losses.
But they were missing 2 of their quarterbacks for like 3 of the games.
The point is to win the games. They lost 5
Well,
of them.
no, the point is not to win the games. Otherwise, Miami would be in the goddamn college football playoff.
Yeah, they lost to Syracuse too late, though. I mean,
but that's one fewer loss.
I know, but it's when you lose that also matters. Mike.
Alabama lost this month.
Does it? They're Alabama.
Put up 3 points.
They're Alabama.
Oh, they didn't
That's not a good argument. All right, Samson, what can you add to this, Samson? What can you add?
I'm sorry, I was just trying. Could you repeat the question?
Is Georgia Tech as good as Georgia?
Didn't they go to like 15 overtimes together?
That's a great question.
Aren't they sort of the same?
Yeah.
No, not in reputation. No, they're not. I thought before the season that they weren't the same. They played the game. They looked the same. And now I'm back to thinking they're not the same.
765 million. Are we talking about that still?
Right. He's not adding nothing to it. He was bored by our college football conversation because he wants to keep
killing
saying,
me. You're trapping me.
He's stating the obvious, and that's why there's this whole bias because of the investment.
Go ahead, talk all the Soto you want. What have we not gotten to?
Oh, that was a Soto thing? I thought he was talking SEC TV deal.
I could have been. I was a little shocked, if we want to talk college football for just a petite second. With the chaos of Clemson winning, I love the fact that we got Ward Manuel off the hook by saying, SMU played so well. They were in it to the end, so we didn't have to put them out and bring Alabama in. That's why. The thought of those guys sitting in their comfy couches and watching the game and wondering after the first quarter about the chaos and then saying, phew, SMU had a good final 3 quarters. The whole process is rigged and a joke. But that said, it's the process that you all wanted, and the complaints come as they come.
Howdy, folks. It's Mike. And guess what? It's Miller time. The holiday season brings around lots of joy and also lots of family gatherings at your home. You're inviting people in there, and you want to make sure they're happy. Why don't you make their time at your place a Miller time? Pass around that beautiful white can of triple hops brewed Miller Lite and watch the smiles adorn those faces. Make Miller Lite the official drink, the official beverage of your holiday get-together. You know why? Because it is a perfect beer for the holiday season. You'll take a sip, you'll look around, and you'll think immediately, yeah, I made the right call. It's got taste that you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks, just great beer for people who like beer. Making memories at year-end gatherings? Tastes like Miller time. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
At Don Miller Subaru West, we believe in being a positive force in our local community. Together with our customers, we have been able to sponsor and support local charities and nonprofits. Don Miller Subaru West has once again partnered with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of the Upper Plains region. Our donations have helped fund cutting-edge research to cure cancer and improve the quality of life for so many. Helping those in need, that's the Subaru Love Promise. Don Miller Subaru West, more than a car dealer.